It's always a good feeling when predictions you have about an episode come true, so let's try to repeat that after this episode for the finale of genLOCK coming this Saturday. Now I will say spoiler warnings for episode 7 of genLOCK, as I'm not going to be showing the episode in this video nor clips from it, just images of the episode and going over and analyzing the events that happened. So the episode starts off, of course, immediately after the fall of Anvil and the genLOCK team has escaped. The Union, of course, is targeting them. They were the initial targets for Anvil in the first place, so they're on the run. And it turns out that the Union has found them a few times already, and they've had to take out whatever drones they've sent and run again, only to hunker down and eventually be found again. No idea how the Union's tracking them at that point, but it's pretty concerning. We see, as they're taking a brief rest, that Valentina actually is playing the guitar, and she has memories of learning how to play it in Shinjuku, a place she's never been, but a place Kazu knows. So from mind sharing like they did in the battle against Nemesis between Kazu and Valentina, apparently some of those memories that they shared are permanent and can be retained, so they can learn things from each other, and Kazu's not too happy about that because everyone has some skeletons in their closet. Except, of course, Cammy, and that would also, as Cammy pointed out, lead to some interesting situations. As she said, she would enjoy watching Kazu's head explode, figuring out the mind of a 17-year-old girl, which I don't think any man would ever be able to figure out the mind of a girl in any capacity, just in general. But, you know, we'll see how that ends up going and how it expands upon that with the mind sharing, because, as Cammy also pointed out, they need it. So Julian ends up going off to patrol again, just to see if anyone's in the area, and he starts hearing the Nemesis in his head. And that, of course, poses a little bit of a problem, but the Nemesis is saying some interesting things that are kind of making Julian question himself even more. That it drives you crazy, doesn't it? You can't cry, or dream, or sleep in one of these Hull-on bodies. That's what the Nemesis has been experiencing for the past 4 years, or maybe it's only been 3 years since the last Hull-on was taken, or however long it's been. They do say it's been active for 4 years, so I'm guessing maybe that the genLOCK program started off 4 years ago, though there's some discrepancies with that. So with that being the case, the Union actually finds them again, and Julian takes them out, and he tells everyone, you know, I've been hearing Nemesis in my head, he's on our network. And of course Cammy realizes that's how they're tracking us. So land, get Julian out of the Hull-on, store the Hull-on, and then take off. And now the Union can't track them because they're not on the genLOCK network. But now opens the discussion, what exactly do we do? We can't upload into the genLOCK network because they'll find us. So do we just never upload again, disappear? Do we try to continue with the genLOCK, or just simply destroy it? Of course, Julian's not in favor of that, nor is Yasmin, because, of course, it's Dr. Weller's pretty much life's work, especially now that he's dead. And speaking of which, once Julian mentions the phrase, Dr. Weller is dead, well, Caliban pops to life and starts talking using Dr. Weller's voice. And as I mentioned in my previous review, Omega protocols apply. And when the doctor had said that to Caliban, I kind of speculated that it was something to do with Caliban taking care of the team, or potentially him having some of Dr. Weller's memory inside of him. And as we find out, Caliban projects a hologram of Dr. Weller, kind of giving a final goodbye to the genLOCK team, and informing them that Caliban was actually one of the first prototypes of the genLOCK program in general, and was one of the first cyber brains to be developed, and contains a fraction of his neural network, of the doctor's neural network, I should say. So, with that being said, he has most of, or all of, Dr. Weller's plans. It's been continually updated with his theories, his plans, and his ideas for how to continue genLOCK. So that, of course, is going to be the basis for where genLOCK's going to continue. Though that will eventually reach a dead end, and someone's going to have to push further beyond what the Doctor had already theorized, because, of course, you can only theorize so much into the future until you actually experience it in that point, because some things might not work out the way you expect. I, myself, being in research, you can only you can plan out and have certain ideas for certain areas, but a lot of things are going to happen that you don't expect. Certain things that you want to work may not, or you might discover something else along the way that works in a way that you didn't think possible or didn't even consider. So things are going to have to branch out and go from there, and there's definitely have a few steps planned out at least, because Dr. Weller, being a brilliant man, definitely has a lot planned. But I'm interested to see who's going to push beyond what Dr. Weller had already planned. Because that's going to have to come at some point, depending on how long Rooster Teeth plans to continue the genLOCK series. After the Doctor says his final goodbye and the hologram disappears, Julian asks Caliban, okay, what was Dr. Weller's next plans for the genLOCK program? Well, step 2 was manufacturing, and step 3 was to transfer the genLOCK program over to the Rogue Technologies, Aeronautics, and Space Administration, or RTASA, which is what I'm going to be referring to it as from now on, because that name is a little bit long to remember. But that's the plan, so they decide to go to that base from then on. And apparently RTASA is a pretty secret facility, as no one knew that there was a base in that location. But, of course, Dr. Weller and Caliban, in this case, knows the location, so that's where they head to. And so everyone seems to have to sleep for a little bit, so it's obviously not a little bit close, but Yasemin takes this opportunity to talk to Julian, and it's shown that she has a very close connection to him, as we already knew, but it's even pushing more of a almost romantic interest, which I fully support, more than Julian and Miranda, especially if Miranda's not really in the realm of the living anymore, but we have yet to have confirmation of that. But in this case, Julian is kind of suffering with the idea of being a copy. He is not the real him. The real him is the nemesis, the one that's hunting them. He is the one hunting them, and that is causing him a lot of grief. Yasemin, though, is saying that, you know, you are real to everyone, to the team, to me. And she tries to put her hand on his shoulder, and she, even when Dr. Weller was saying his final goodbye, she tried to hold his hand as well. But of course, him being a hologram, that's just reminding him even more that he's not able to be there in a physical sense. He's stuck in his tube, and that's where he's only able to survive. So he's not sure that that's even enough, that he's real to everyone else. He needs to be real to himself as well, and that's something he's going to struggle with as long as Nemesis is around, even probably a bit beyond that. But after that, we arrive at the actual base, and they are greeted by guns. It's a place in the middle of nowhere, and then some people from RTASA just come out and point the guns at them. But again, as I kind of predicted in the last episode, we saw that the scientists that were rescued in episode 5 were being shipped off for debriefing somewhere else. And where was that somewhere else? Where else but RTASA, the base that they are going to, and since one of the scientists had shown interest in the mechs, he's the one that greets them and says, you know, these guys are good, let's bring them into the base and discuss what happened, because he had no idea that Anvil had fallen. And that only happened yesterday, or the day before, I should say. So all of this has been happening in a very short period of time. And they go into the base and are greeted by Dr. Jaw, who we find out is actually someone who is related to Dr. Weller in that she was his wife. And, of course, that didn't really work out, and she decided to stay at RTASA while he continued with the genLOCK program, but she knows all about it. In fact, it was her, Dr. Weller, and one other person, Mark Holcroft, that was fronting the genLOCK program. Mark Holcroft was the funding, or the money behind it, and Dr. Jaw, Dr. Weller were the brains behind the operation. Of course, Dr. Weller being the pioneer, the one who came up with the entire thing, and continued with it after Dr. Joss decided to stay at RTASA. So at this point, we go and meet someone else. We meet Mark Holcroft, the money behind the operation, and apparently the money behind RTASA as well. So this guy's probably pretty loaded, and I'm always a little bit wary of the people who stay in the back or in the shadows and kind of just handle the money of the operations, as they could always be shifting money to both sides, and I'm not convinced that this guy isn't, especially considering he's referring to genLOCK and the team as his investments. So yeah, and he also goes the extra mile to list off all the knowledge that he has about the people, or knowing, just showing off that he knows each member of the team's background. That Cammy was is a security expert for the polity after, she went a little bit too far hacking. Kazu is a Japanese Special Defense Forces washout, which Kazu kind of feels a little bit proud about. Valentina was a Russian operative who turned to the Ukrainian resistance for societal pressures, he refers to it as. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more expanding on that. Of course, if the genLOCK series continues, we'll be expanding and going into more of the past of each of the people, or each of the members of the team. Most interestingly is Yasmin's, because she came from the Union, and we find out that she turned to polity for sanction, or sanctum, I guess is the proper word, after she learned that she outed her parents as intellectuals, and then the Union took them after that, which the rest of the team kind of is just like, oh my god, I didn't know, or at least it seems that way. Even Valentina kind of puts her hand on Yaz's shoulder and is kind of comforting her. So apparently that's something really bad. It's not something I'm guessing any of us really know about just watching it, because we haven't seen any area of the Union or know how the Union works. Hell, we don't even really know how the polity works. It's something that's going to have to definitely be expanded on in future seasons, but for right now, apparently being an intellectual is a bad thing in the Union, and I'm guessing means something different than it does in polity, maybe? Or maybe just being someone who has intelligence and who can think for themselves. Maybe this is something like the book 1984, where Big Brother is always watching. You must conform to the society and just be pretty much a human robot and just serve in that sense. I'm really interested to see how the Union works, because we see all of their soldiers fully clad in armor. I'm not 100% sure which ones are actually just humanoid drones, or if they're actual human soldiers, or maybe a combination of both, that they're just implanted with microchips. We really need to see how the Union works, but that's probably not going to be until Season 2. For the remainder of this, though, Dr. Hallcroft, or Mark Hallcroft, I don't think he's actually a doctor, is asking, what's the plan now? Dr. Weller's gone. What do you guys propose to do? And Cammy comes forward, kind of, hiding the fact that they still have Caliban, which has Dr. Weller's memory and ideas for genLOCK implanted in him. She comes forward saying that she was apprenticing under the Doctor, knows about genLOCK, knows how to maintain it at the very least, but doesn't really hint that there's ideas to take it further. However, she does propose the new designs that she has for armor for all of the new Holons, which I think is proof enough that she can definitely maintain genLOCK as it is, and is pushing it forward, because that's armor that the Doc didn't even design. So yeah, so they get to work on that, and we see the Holons that are fully equipped with all of their new armor, the same that we saw in the opening, and they are fully well and good. Everyone is very happy with them. Yasmin loves the look of her new unit, same with Valentina. Kazu especially, because it's designed after the manga that Cammy was reading about the Robo Shogun. No idea what manga it's referencing. It might actually be referencing a manga that actually exists. I honestly have no idea. So Kazu's really happy, and then there's Cammy's, whose Holon is now standing shorter than everyone else's, and she's extremely happy with how it turned out, because it has the bunny legs and the bunny design. Same with Julian. He's happy with how his looks, and it looks pretty similar, but definitely has a new design. Also, to match, he has a new design as well. He has, he's a hologram, so he can design whatever clothes he wants to wear, but he outfitted himself in a new uniform to match his new team. And now the mission is to take out the Nemesis by whatever means possible, one way or another. So either try to get Julian's original mind back, or just simply destroy it. And that's where the episode ends off. So there are definitely a few things that we should expect for the next episode. The one I'm most looking forward to is, of course, the battle that's going to ensue, and we get to see all of the Holons of the genLOCK team in their full capacity, with their new armor, their new abilities. I'm wondering, though, if Cammy, in designing this new armor for herself, Kazu, Yasmin, and Julian, it's fairly straightforward, but for Valentina's, there was the cloaking that was implemented in it. And I don't know if Cammy has that much knowledge about that tech to be able to implement that, or if it's something else that's going to be implemented later. My guess is it's probably going to be there, although I wouldn't necessarily call that new armor, but, you know, we'll see how it all goes. And they are definitely going to have to fight the Nemesis. That's the entire goal. That's what Hallcroft has been aiming for, or that's what he is aiming for at this point, to get the missing Holon. And he even said in the conversation, you know, can't imagine how hard this is for Julian, but you need to stay focused on the goal at hand. And Julian definitely shows interest in going after this lost Holon. So that's the goal. That's the entire mission, is to take out Nemesis one way or another. Odds are it's probably going to have to be its destruction, whether it's by just sheer force, or whether Julian and Nemesis, I should say, just to keep the names separate, are going to have to come face to face, reach an understanding, and maybe Nemesis will destroy himself, knowing that, or coming back to his senses a little bit and realizing that he can't go back to his own body, and that there's not really a future for him. Maybe fighting for the Union is not something that he wants to do anymore, or something along those lines, and he might take himself out. However, Nemesis will not be the only enemy. Or it might be for this season, but one thing you have to remember, and I forgot in the last review, the Union now has a second Holon, plus all of the genLOCK tech that was at Anvil. That sixth Holon that was meant for Sinclair, they now have. It's fully battle ready, fully equipped, ready to go. And we already know that the Union has Sinclair because they sent an imposter in his place. So whether Sinclair's alive or not, my guess is they probably keep him alive, especially considering genLOCK compatible people are incredibly rare. Now that they have the technology to upload someone's mind digitally or electronically and make an electronic brain, they're just going to get Sinclair, even with whatever experiments and brainwashing and everything they've done to him. They're going to bring him there, upload his brain, maybe make copies of it, do something, try to replicate the genLOCK tech, and they might be able to mass produce it. Even if they can't, they at least have a second Holon. And if they still have Sinclair around, they can make a second Nemesis and upgrade it. I am kind of expecting the Nemesis that we know now to be able to fly in the next episode, because in Anvil there's the designs for Julian's wings, plus the technology there to make it. I see no reason why Nemesis won't be able to fly in the next episode, because frankly, a ground unit versus a flying unit's probably going to win, especially considering Nemesis didn't really have any guns that we saw. It just had the nanotech as a weapon, which is pretty devastating, but useless against a Holon, except for, you know, masking radio frequencies and things like that, cutting them off from everything else. Though I wonder if mind transfer would be able to get through, or mind linking would be able to get through the nanotech itself. If Cammy, again, was locked into the dome, would someone be able to mind share with her? I don't know. That's something that I would be interested in seeing. But, needless to say, Nemesis is probably going to get an upgrade. And I know it's only been a day, so how would they be able to design the wings and everything that quickly? Well, they're probably going to rest a little bit before they go on the offensive against Anvil, first and foremost. But it was also, like, less than a day between when genLOCK took out the base and rescued the scientists versus when the Union and Nemesis attacked Anvil itself. Because the team just came back at the beginning of episode 6, and then the attack took place like later that same day. So yeah, it was very, very quick. Nemesis and the Union made it to that close to the Anvil base extremely quickly. Plus, Kazu had ripped off one of Nemesis's arms when they were in that raid, when they attacked the Union manufacturing plant in the first place. And yet, when Nemesis attacked the Anvil base, probably just hours later, its arms were reattached. So they have the tech to reattach things or attach things to Nemesis quite quickly. I see no reason why Nemesis won't be able to fly or get upgrades, potentially have upgrades similar to all of them. Maybe Yasmin's lasers added in there as well. It's got 4 arms, so that could mean 4 lasers attached to that as well, if it only can come out of the arms for whatever reason. So all in all, there's a lot of things to look forward to for the finale. Of course, the battle that is definitely going to ensue between genLOCK and Nemesis, potentially the appearance of the second Holon being Sinclair's, the upgrades that Nemesis or Sinclair's Holon both might have with Julian's wings and the other tech that had been added to the other Holons in the genLOCK program. It looks like Cammy's going to be the successor to Dr. Weller, having developed all of this armor, and potentially might be the one to have new ideas for the genLOCK program itself. I'm interested to see how this mind sharing is going to go and how people are going to learn from it, because we've seen that Kazu has secrets and skeletons in his closet that he doesn't want everyone to know. And we've seen that Valentina can take people's memories and learn things from them, with learning the guitar and things of that sort. Whether you want to or not, when you mind share with someone, memories are going to be transferred. Then there's also the question of how many people at Anvil are still alive. That might not be something directly answered right away in the finale of genLOCK Season 1, but it might be something that they leave us off with at the end, or the right after the credits or something along those lines, that we see prisoners being transferred from Anvil to somewhere in the Union, and the next season is going to have to be going to the Union to rescue them, or something along those lines. If Julian still is really in love with Miranda, or they find out even just that their comrades are alive, they might want to go on a mission to rescue them from the Union. And that might be the plot for Season 2, instead of being a counterstrike against the Union. If Nemesis is defeated in the finale of Season 1, then Season 2 might be to rescue the other people from Anvil. Things of that sort. I'm interested to see how it's going to turn out. Let me know what you guys think and what you guys expect for the finale, and how you feel about Mr. Holcroft. Do you think he's going to be a protagonist all the way through, or do you think he is kind of double-dipping and supporting the Union in some ways as well? It's interesting to think about, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I look forward to the finale, as I'm sure all you guys do as well. I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you... Also, for those who are unaware and who are fans of the RWBY series, there is currently a poll going on to determine the fandom's choice for Best Girl in the RWBY series. I'll leave a link down in the description below to that, so you guys can go to the poll and vote for your 3 favorite choices for Best Girl in the RWBY series. I'm also doing a giveaway for 4 volumes of the RWBY manga, whether it's the 4 volumes of the manga anthology, or you'd like to sub 1 or 2 of them out for the first volume of the RWBY manga, or another book that is coming out later this June, labeled After the Fall, that follows Team Coffee after Beacon has fallen. I'll leave a link down in the description below for that as well. You can go to the video there and enter the giveaway by subscribing to the channel and commenting on the video below as to which books you'd like to enter, or enter to win, I should say.